I learned how to make barbecue pork ribs 5 times easier, and I'm going to prove you can do it too. I used to think ribs were a nightmare. Hours of work, fancy gear, and still tough meat that nobody liked. But after burning a few racks and learning what not to do, I found a way to make juicy, fall off the bone ribs that taste better than anything that you can get at a barbecue restaurant. So how do you make barbecue pork ribs without slaving all day? Do you need a smoker? What's the secret to the tender, flavorful bite? And can a total beginner pull it off? I've broken down this super easy method into a few simple steps that anyone can follow. Stick with me, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to make barbecue pork ribs. The kind that'll have your friends begging for more. No stress, no fancy tools, just delicious results. Let's get started. Step 1, picking the ribs. The secret to knowing how to barbecue pork ribs is picking the right ribs. Baby back ribs are smaller, leaner, and cook faster. They come from the area near the spine and have a gentle curve to them. They're perfect for a quick dinner. St. Louis style spare ribs are meatier, have more fat, and a bolder flavor. They are ideal for a big barbecue. I once grabbed a random rack without checking, and the uneven cooking was a mess. So make sure that you look for an evenly thick rack with good marbling and no bones poking out. A tip here is to load up on ribs when they're on sale and throw what you aren't going to cook right away right into the freezer. I know what you're thinking. Frozen ribs? No way. While I do prefer fresh ribs, frozen ribs totally work. Just thaw them out completely in the fridge overnight. Now step 2, let's move on to prepping the ribs. Start by removing the membrane, that little silvery skin that's on the back side of the ribs. It gets chewy and blocks your rub's flavor. My first time, I left it on and my ribs were tougher than cardboard. So slide a butter knife under one of the corners, grab it with a paper towel, and pull it off. If it tears, just keep on going. Trim any of that thick fat or jagged edges. You want to do this for even cooking. Then pat the ribs dry with paper towels. It helps build a better bark. For a binder, I like to use yellow mustard. It sounds weird, but you don't taste that at all. The flavor disappears during the cooking process and it helps the rub cling. You can also use olive oil or hot sauce. When you use the hot sauce, you do get some added flavor and heat, so don't go overboard with it. Step 3, what type of rub should I use for barbecue pork ribs? I get this question all the time. I like to start with a savory base, kosher salt, coarse black pepper, and garlic powder. It's commonly called SPG. If you know, you know. I also like to add smoked paprika for smoky depth and color, onion powder, and for a touch of sweetness, add some brown sugar. Do you want some more heat? Then toss in some cayenne or chili powder. When you add the rib to your pork ribs, don't skimp. Rub it generously on both sides. This one time I went too light and my ribs were bland as toast. So like I said, make sure you don't skip on the seasoning. Now after seasoning them, let them sit for 30 minutes while you prep your grill, smoker, or oven. It will give the salt time to pull out some of that moisture and pull the seasoning deeper into the meat. By the way, if you're new to backyard barbecue and want a little extra help with cooking times and temperatures, I've got a free guide that'll make things super easy for you. It covers everything from meat to veggies and it's perfect for getting started. Just drop a 100 down in the comments below and I'll send it your way. Now step 4 is setting up your smoker. Now, do you need some crazy setup to cook ribs? Nope, I don't feel like you need a fancy smoker to barbecue ribs. I've done this on charcoal grill, a gas grill, and even my oven when a storm hit. For charcoal, set up 2 zones. Coals on one side, ribs on the other. I like to use hickory or applewood when it comes to smoking woods. And I tend to use a water pan for humidity within the smoker. Are you using a gas grill? You can pretty much use the same setup. Light one burner, place the ribs on the unlit side, and use a foil pouch of wood chips to get that smoky flavor. And oven users, aim for 250 to 275 degrees Fahrenheit. You won't get the smoke flavor on your ribs. However, you can add a teaspoon of liquid smoke to your spritz later. My first oven ribs were a gamble, but they turned out amazing. And I nailed that process. I'm gonna leave a link to a video if you want to see the whole process in detail. Just check out the comments down below. Step 5, this is the phase where we build that flavorful crust. Start by placing the ribs bone side down. The bones are going to protect the meat from the heat, and they're going to keep the meat from burning or cooking too fast. One of our main goals is to have the fat render slowly. After placing the ribs into the oven or smoker, close the lid or the oven door. And don't peek for at least an hour. I used to check constantly. This dropped the heat and dragged out my cook times. When you see that the rub has set in to a rich mahogany brown and stays put when you touch the ribs, you're ready for the next step. Step 6, which is spritzing every 30 to 45 minutes with apple juice and a splash of apple cider vinegar, or just straight up water. This helps keep the meat surface moist, and it's going to help the smoke stick. I skipped this once thinking it wasn't needed, and because I'm lazy, and I ended up with dry, sad ribs. Here's a tip I wish someone had told me sooner. If the bark's too dark, cut back on the wood chunks. You're getting too much smoke, and that might lead to a bitter taste. And if the bark is too light, skip a spritz and give the ribs some more time. Here's where ribs go from good to incredible. The wrapping phase. If you use foil, it's called the Texas Crutch. It locks in the moisture for that melt in your mouth texture. I like using foil for super tender ribs, but butcher paper gives a bit more chew. It doesn't matter if you're using foil or butcher paper, you do want to add 2 tablespoons of butter, a drizzle of honey, a sprinkle of rub, or some brown sugar. Make sure to wrap the ribs tightly and cook at the same temperature for about another 1.5 to 2 hours. Now step 8, now we're going to move on to checking for tenderness. If a probe slides in like butter, you're set. If not, then the ribs are going to need some more time. Ideally, we're looking for an internal temperature of 190 degrees and above, at which point it'll be time to brush on a thin layer of barbecue sauce. Make sure to do this gently to keep that bark intact. Let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes on the smoker until tacky. Don't get me wrong, I like a saucy rib, but dry ribs are just as good. So you can skip the sauce and add more rub. I remember a time that I oversauced my ribs and it drowned out my rub's flavor. It was a big mistake. So now I don't sauce my ribs. I prefer them with just the dry rib on them. Step number 9, once the glaze is set or the ribs have reached 203 degrees Fahrenheit, it is then time to rest the ribs. Do it for 10 to 15 minutes under loose foil to let the juices settle. One time I sliced in too soon and all that juice leaked out right onto the cutting board. And a tip here is to flip bone side up so that you can slice in between the bones. Then serve with some barbecue sides like cornbread, coleslaw, or baked beans. So now you know how to barbecue pork ribs with results that'll wow everyone. No fancy equipment, just ribs that taste better than most barbecue restaurants. Try it, snap a pic, and share it with me. And do you remember when I said you can also make barbecue pork ribs in the oven? Good, because I made a whole video about the process and I go into some pretty deep detail. You can watch that video right here. Check it out now, and I'll see you there.